Welcome to this e-learning course on FIRE, a framework for integrating rights and equality into disaster risk reduction and climate resilience. This module focuses on governance, systems, and structures. Having completed this module, participants will be able to identify governance, systems, and structure aspects of disasters and climate change, and understand the relevance of human rights and gender equality to governance systems and structures in disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. The integration of rights and equality in disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation is shaped not only by a country's legislation, policies, and plans, but also by the governance systems and structures which enact and implement them at national, subnational, and local levels. In this module, we discuss the roles of disaster risk reduction, human rights, and gender equality governance structures and how they interact. Integration of rights and equality may come in the form of, for example, representation of national human rights institutions and gender equality institutions in disaster risk reduction governance mechanisms, such as disaster management councils, conducting post-disaster needs assessments and rights monitoring, and institutional collaboration on capacity building for rights and equality. The governance, systems, and structures dimension of FIRE focuses on developing and/or improving three types of systems. First, law, policy, and procedure on disaster risk reduction and resilience building that is based on international standards and guidelines on gender equality and human rights. For example, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction and its basis in international human rights law, including the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and the Beijing Platform for Action on Gender Equality. Second, institutions for decision-making and accountability that enable people, particularly those belonging to disadvantaged or marginalized groups, to exercise their rights to voice, to participate, and to claim rights and entitlements. For example, organizations of persons with disabilities should play a role in local and national disaster risk management councils and similar bodies to ensure that relevant actions reflect the needs and interests of people belonging to this group. And third, diverse platforms for civil society, particularly disadvantaged and marginalized groups, to articulate and pursue the realization of their rights. For example, women's disaster risk reduction networks bring together a range of actors from local to national to regional level to pursue shared priorities relating to enhancing the realization of gender equality and the rights of women in the context of disaster risk reduction, helping to address underlying structural determinants of differential exposure and vulnerability. Across all systems, attention should be paid to identifying and addressing institutionalized exclusion on the basis of social status, such as gender, age, class, caste, ethnicity, and health. Strengthening governance systems and structures requires increasing coherence between sectors, stakeholders, and levels of governance engaged in disaster risk reduction, planning, and action. It also requires enhancing governance monitoring and evaluation mechanisms to ensure the accountability and transparency of disaster risk reduction action for all stakeholders. This dimension also highlights the need for adequate budgets and non-financial resources, as well as opportunities and initiatives to strengthen the diverse capacities required to achieve the kinds of societal transformations needed to reduce risks, adapt to climate change, and pursue rights-based and inclusive sustainable development.